I want you to know that today we're starting that brand new series called Order Your Life. And it is a series that's entirely looking at priorities. And the idea is that if you will order your life in a particular way, you'll get the life that you've always wanted. You'll get the life that you've ordered, so to speak. And so many of us here at the start of the year, we start off with goals about how things are going to get better, or they're going to be renewed. We're going to lose some pounds. We're going to shave off debt. But everything's going to be different in this new year. But the truth is, how you order things in your life, what you put first, it determines a lot of whether or not you accomplish those goals. You know, also when I think about goals and I think about ordering your life, it also makes me think about the fact that, you know, when you are trying to order your life, you become conscious more of time, like that you've only got so much time to do things, right? If you're trying to work in a new exercise regimen for yourself, you're probably going to be aware that that's going to take some time. You're going to be stretched in terms of your schedule in ways that you didn't expect. But we're time conscious all the time. You ever notice how much in our culture we look at our watches, or maybe since I just said that, you're looking at your screen and you're like, how long is this guy really going to talk today? And we're conscious of time in so many different ways. But normally when we talk about being time conscious, we think about time in short ways. We think about time in terms of the immediate, maybe hours, maybe at the most a month from now. We don't think about time on a big scale or time on a big horizon, but actually the Bible kind of steers us to think about time on that big scale, to think about our lives as limited and as short. And just a few scriptures I want to point you to. Job 7:6, it says this. It says, my days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle. Maybe you don't know what that is. I'll explain in just a second. And they come to an end without hope. Remember, O God, that my life is but a breath. So that's the perspective the scriptures kind of pull us toward when it comes to our own lives. A weaver's shuttle is an ancient thing for making fabric. It's a tool, a machine. And the reason why he's saying it's swifter than a weaver's shuttle and they come to an end without hope is because the way the weaver's shuttle worked, you get to the end of this piece of fabric you're working on and you cut it off with some metal tool. You just cut it off all at once. And what he's saying here is he's saying, our lives are like that. We expect that it's going to go on so long, but then suddenly your life is over. And that's it, and it's done. Job in chapter 9, he has this to say about the swiftness of life. My days are swifter than a runner. They fly away without a glimpse of joy. Now, I know you came to be encouraged today, but I'm not done. I'm not done yet, so just hang on. But he's saying, hey, life goes fast. I can remember when I was a little boy, if I was told something would last an hour, I just thought that was forever, right? And then when I got into high school and I started thinking, Monday to Friday, that goes kind of quick. Now I'm like, what happened to 2015? That just it was gone real quick. Or I get to June and I'm still trying to write that new date. And I'm still writing the old year because life just goes faster and faster. Psalm 39 points to this reality. It says, Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered and that my life is fleeing away. And then he says, my life is no longer than the width of my hand. An entire lifetime, just a moment to you. Human existence is but a breath. So we're meant to have this perspective that our lives are not going to last forever. We're meant to have this perspective that even if you're young, your life is vanishing away. It's something to take note of. And when you when you approach life with that kind of perspective, it starts changing things. Take note. Today's not just the first Sunday of 2018. Today is the first day of the rest of your brief life. And what I want to focus on with you today is the fact that if your life is brief, you need to focus on what you're doing first. And this is why. This is our big idea. Because what goes first in your life determines everything else. What goes first in your life determines everything else. And the problem is we don't know how much time we have left in the rest of life. Or maybe we do. I don't know if you've ever been there. I went there this last week to deathclock.com. Yes, I'm talking about Death Clock on Sunday morning. It's really a very interesting site. You put in your weight and your BMI and some other things about your temperament, and it tells you what day it expects that you'll die. Yeah. Whether you're a smoker, non-smoker, your birthday, height, weight, all numbers you want to forget, right? My personal day of death is March 24th, 2064. So I have 46 years left. I'll be 94. It's hard to believe when I look at myself in the mirror. But when you live with that reality, it changes how you live. You know, when you think you have a lot of time, you're prone to squander it. But if you realize that you have only a little, you're going to be more careful with it. Psalm 90:12 says this. It says that it's a prayer. It's a great prayer for you to start the year with. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Wisdom, it's not just like stuff you know. Wisdom is about applying what you know to your life. I'm not going to say much in this series where you're like, wow, I learned so many new things. Instead, I'm focused on helping you to apply things that you know and start to live them out. And what I'm saying to you today is whatever you put first determines the rest. Whatever you're going to consider a priority will determine the rest of your life. And what I'm going to talk about, it's not necessarily easy. It's challenging. It takes intentionality. And a lot of us know what is important. And the thing is, we know what's important and we don't do it. A lot of us are guilty of being strong in knowing what our values are, but not living according to them. Maybe you could voice what things you value, and yet if we looked at your checkbook and your calendar and your relationships, you'd have to admit, I don't live according to my values. And what I'm wanting to say to you today is, you can. You can live according to your values. God will help you. I'm not saying it's easy, but everything worthwhile, it's uphill. I want to talk to you a little bit about the power of first things. As we look at the power of ordering things first, or the principle of first things, the Bible, it has a lot to say about it. Old and New Testament. What you put first, what you give to God first, is critical because, and this is the principle of first, when you give to God first in an area of your life, He blesses the rest. So give Him first of your time, He'll bless the rest of it. Give Him first of your money, He'll bless the rest of it. Give Him first of your passions, He'll bless the rest of it. Give Him first of your week, He'll bless the rest of it. That's the principle of first. That's where I want to start on this first Sunday of 2018. Because what results is that we end up with unexplainable favor from God when we put God first in our lives. And who couldn't use a little more unexplainable favor. You know, first determines capacity. And first things, what you put first, it communicates priority to the other people in your life. If people are certain you're not going to miss X because that's important to you, it says something to everyone else. First impacts the rest. So like, if you decide you're going to do this thing before you do anything else, it will mean that everything else is shuffled further down the road in terms of importance. Teach us to number our days. Teach us to put things in order. So, how do I see significant change in the coming year? How do you get this to happen in your life or to take root in your life? Well, first of all, is to put first things first. Put first things first. That's what we're going to be looking at today and in this series. Second, in terms of seeing significant change, we want to give significant focus and energy to the things that really matter. Because very often when we think about time and we think about where we spend most of our energy and time, it's very often not in things that matter at all. And finally, do it now. That's what I want to tell you today. Do you want to have a significant change in your life this year? Start doing it right now. Start doing it first. Live with a sense of urgency. And so maybe, you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, okay, so what do I do first? How do I face the new year and expect that my finances and my relationships and my business and my schooling, that it's going to go better? What do I start with? And I'd say to you, what you need to start with, what you need to do first, are spiritual things. The way that you change the rest of your life is to change what's happening in your life spiritually. Sometimes we have a tendency to think of ourselves as physical beings who come to church, we have a spiritual experience here, and we move on with the rest of our physical life. But it's actually different from that. You and I, we're eternal spiritual beings. We're in a temporary physical life. And this life, it's going to come to an end. And so what I've decided to prioritize now, that's what really matters. So how do we do that? How do we give attention to the spiritual side? How do we do the spiritual things first that will give us the fuel and the power and the strength to see the changes that we want to see happen? Well, there are three ways that I can think of that you can put the spiritual part first. And the first is this: turn when into now. Turn when into now. What do I mean by this? I mean that a whole lot in our lives, for most of us, we tend to tell ourselves, hey, I'm going to start that when such and such happens. I'm going to start being generous when I get out of debt. I'm going to start being generous when I get paid more. When I get a new house, that's when I'm going to start hosting a small group where I live. When I get married, that's when I'll get more serious about sexual purity. When I have kids, I'll do this, that, and the other thing that I'm not doing right now. And I'm saying to you, it almost never works that way. You've got to put those things in place now, or when will likely never come. It's good, whether you thought so or not. A lot of us, we put off God like this. We feel like God's telling us to do something, and we make excuses about why we can't do it right now. We tell ourselves that, hey, you know what, I'll give in to God when this happens. Or we tell ourselves, hey, you know, I'll stop doing that thing I know is destroying me when such and such happens. And I'm saying to you, the win is today. The win is right now. And if you've been putting off God with this kind of backward thinking about when rather than now, well, I've got a word from God for you. It's found in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2. It says, I tell you, now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. You know what that means? It's never going to get easier than it is today. It's never going to become more favorable for you to turn your life over to Christ than it is right now. Right now, today is the day. I love the promise of Micah. He's describing God, and he says, who is like you who delights to show mercy? God has mercy for you today. God has a way in for you, and it's today. Don't put it off anymore. You know, a second step that we need to take when it comes to putting the spiritual first is we've got to turn intentions into actions. Turn intentions into actions. You know, what matters from your life is not what you meant to do, it's what you did. And so first thing I want to point you to, how do you do this? The first thing you do is to focus on action. That is to say, don't keep thinking about what you mean to do. Think about what you're doing. Some of you, you're listening to me say these things, and you know that they're right, and you're putting it off, and you're planning on putting it off further. And I'm telling you, if that's where you're at, you're in trouble. Look at how James says it. James chapter 4, verse 17. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, sins. And I'm encouraging you today, if you know the good that you ought to do, focus on doing it. Do it. Don't just feel it, do it. That's my job as your pastor. I'm wanting to set a challenge before you and take you through steps that will help you to grow spiritually. And today, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to lead you in to ordering your life in a certain way that I know will result in transformation for you. But you got to do something about it today. A second thing that we need to focus on if we're to turn intentions into actions is to focus on power. And why do I need power? Because there are a lot of good things I want to do, but I don't have the strength in myself to do it. And so how do I get power? I need God. I need to have an urgency in my life about needing God to work in my life. Willpower is not going to change your life on the spiritual side or the character side, or really willpower will, for very few of us, will change much of anything in life at all. But when we have God's help, when we have God's power, that's where change starts to happen and unfold. And when I say power, one of the basic ways that we seek power is through prayer. Look at how 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7 says. It says, the end of all things is near. Now, this is talking about the end of the world. And I think we're near the end of the world. I really think Jesus will come back in my generation. I think we're at the end. But whether you think it's the end of the world or not, like I've been saying, you're at the end. Your end is near. My end is near. Because life vanishes just like that. He says, the end of all things is near. Therefore, be clear-minded and self-controlled so that you can pray. Why are you supposed to be clear-minded and self-controlled? Is it so you can lose 20 pounds this coming year? Is it so that you can fix your debt problem? Is it so that you can get along better with your spouse by the end of the year than you are right now? No. You're supposed to be clear-minded and self-controlled so that you can pray. Because when you get God's power happening in your life, that's where real change can start to happen. Now, once again, we're starting off another year here at River City Church, and we are starting it with 21 days of prayer and fasting. That starts today. And why are we doing that? Because we're giving God the first of the year to receive unexplainable favor in the rest of the year. Because that's a biblical principle. That's why we're taking 21 days to pray and fast at the start of the year. We're giving it to God. And like I said, it starts today. It goes from January 7th to January 27th. You can see the schedule in the bulletin today. We're going to meet every Monday to Friday during this period, and we're going to meet from 7 to 7:30. We're going to pray together about certain things. On Wednesday nights at 7 p.m., this Wednesday night we'll be having it, there'll be a prayer meeting. And from 9 to 10 on Saturdays, there'll be worship and prayer that will happen. We're going to give God the first part of our year. And the reason why we do it in conjunction with fasting can take a lot of different shapes. In fact, there are some resources in the lobby. They look like this. They're all over the place out there. One has to do with prayer. One will give you some instructions about fasting and how to do that and what to do if you have medical problems, some other ways that you can fast. But the reason why we fast along with prayer is because we need then to ask God for His strength and His help. Because it's not easy. Come 3 days without coffee, my life is turned into a mess. But I'm telling you, things like that help us to focus in prayer. And it's a biblical model, fasting and prayer. Something else you can do to focus on power is to read the Bible every day. Read the Bible every day. Why not start this now? You know, if you're looking for God to speak to you, He'll do it right here. This is a living book. When you read this book, it's not like a passive story. It's not like any other book you've ever read. These words interact with you on the level of your attitudes and your thoughts. These words inspire. These words give direction. These words bring the power of God to your life. And I'm telling you, there's a million ways that you can go about this. A bunch of great tools on YouVersion. It's an app you can easily download. You can also visit it on your computer. YouVersion. YOU-version. Something else you can do, though, besides focusing on action and focusing on power, something you can do to turn intentions into actions is to focus on people. Here at the start of the year, I want to encourage you to get your relationships right in 2018. Get in healthy relationships. Maybe you have an uncomfortable conversation you've been putting off. It's time to go have that conversation today. Not when circumstances are better. You know, another way to focus on people, it's to join a small group, join one of our life groups here. That's a way to get into closer relationships with others. That's a way to turn your intentions to grow into actions, steps. If you're interested in leading a life group, by the way, there's training happening tomorrow night. You can learn more about it in the lobby. Just ask somebody, where do I go to learn about life groups? They'll point you to the right spot. But this is key, getting into a small group. Because life change happens in the context of relationships. You want to change? You want to turn your intentions into actions? Start focusing on people. The last thing I want to encourage you to focus on when it comes to turning your intentions into actions, I want to encourage you to focus on purpose in 2018. Focus on purpose. What do I mean by this? I mean that you need to figure out why you're here. You need to discover what your gifting is and get engaged in ministering to others through that gift. Look at how 1 Peter says it. It says these words. It says, above all, love each other. No. Okay, there we go. 1 Peter 4:10-11. Each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in his forms. And then he names a couple things. He says, if anyone speaks, let him speak as if he were speaking the very words of God. But you're like, well, I don't speak. That's not my gift. Okay. He says, if anyone serves, that covers a bunch of other activities. He should do it with the strength God provides so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. Your life has purpose. You were made with a reason. You were made with certain giftings and a certain temperament, and it's for a purpose. And you find yourself right here in this church, one of the basic things that should be happening in your life as a Christian is that you find a way to give expression to the gifts that God's put in your life. That you come in touch with what your purpose is, and you start doing something in a deliberate way with a group of other people so that you're reaching out. You're doing something with that gift. Now, as I'm talking about this today, you might think, well, that's great. How do I get there? The way you get there, very simply, right here at our church, is something called the growth track. You hear me talk about it nearly every Sunday. It starts again tonight at 6:30. It's, by the way, also the way to join the church is through the first night of the growth track. Come tonight, 6:30. I'll be right here. And this is a way for you. The point of the growth track is it's not to join the church. That's part of it. That's tied to your purpose. But the point of the growth track is to help you discover your purpose and discover your giftings. And so I want to encourage you, if you're not in a place where you're like functioning in a team and you're ministering with other people out of the gifts that God has put in your life, according to the purpose that he made you for, that'd be a great step to take. But you know, also tied to purpose, it's where many of you are this morning. It's also tied to purpose, has to do with your identity. And some of you have not come into touch yet with your identity in Jesus Christ because you've not yet taken the step of baptism. You've believed in Jesus, but you've not been yet baptized. And after this service, as we do the first Sunday of the month, after each service, there's a chance to go and be baptized. We have everything that you need here: dry clothes, a way for you to dry your hair, everything that you need in order to be baptized. We got towels, we got the thing right in the corner of the lobby right here. You can just walk out and go be baptized. Because that's a step, that's a concrete step that helps you to focus on purpose, on who you are in Christ. If you've not taken that step, don't say, I'll do it when everybody's here from my family. Just do it now. Do it today. So I'm saying to you today, 2018 will be most successful if we get focused on action, on power through praying and reading God's word, through people, through life groups. If we are focused on purpose by finding a place to serve in a team, in our church, these are all ways to turn intentions into actions. Okay, so those two things that I've mentioned to you, turn when into now and turn intentions into actions, those are steps that I'm saying to you will help you get focused on the spiritual and putting the spiritual first. And finally, the last thing that I want to mention to you this morning is this. It's that the third thing that we need to focus on in order to put the spiritual first, it's to put Jesus first in all things. Put Jesus first in all things. So if we're going to order our lives and we're going to put Jesus first. This is in touch with what Jesus said. Matthew 6:33. Jesus, he's preaching, and he says this. He says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things." He's been talking about all kinds of things, material things, clothing, food. He's talked about worry and basically not to worry. And he says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well." How are you? That is to say, if you're going to make real resolutions and you're really going to change as a person, then you got to put God at the center. You've got to put God first, and then the rest will have his blessing. And this Sunday, January 7th, 2018, I'm challenging you in a particular way. That in the next 90 days, I want to challenge you to give God first in some particular parts of your life. In fact, it's on a card there in your bulletin. It's the Order Your Life Challenge. And the Order Your Life Challenge, it's just go ahead and pull it out of your bulletin. It's a card that looks like this. It's easy to find. And these are the challenges that we're issuing to everybody in the Order Your Life Challenge. That's for the next 90 days from January through March. With God's help, you're going to order your year by giving God the first part of your year by participating in 21 days of prayer and fasting. So that's a step you're going to take. You're ordering your life in this way. You're giving God the first part of your year through prayer and fasting. 21 days of prayer. The second part of this Order Your Life Challenge is to order your day. Give God the first part of your day by reading God's word and praying. So that's a basic thing that you're going to do every day before you basically start on anything else. You're going to give time to God. You're going to speak to God, and you're going to let him speak to you. And I'm not saying you have to read books and books of the Bible at once. I'm saying give this 15 minutes a day. Give this 10 minutes a day. But this is a basic thing. If you want for God to bless the whole day, then give him the first part. Third is to order your week. You're going to give God the first part of your week by attending church services each week and a life group each week faithfully. So you're giving God something out of your week, first things first. And you're saying, yeah, I'll do that for the next 90 days. Here in a few weeks, we're going to introduce life groups on Sunday morning. You'll be able to see what's happening. There's usually about 60 of these groups that are happening. And you can start in that. But also notice, it's the idea of being here every Sunday. If you miss this church once, twice, 3 times a month, you're probably not ordering it first. You're not ordering your week in a way that's helping you. Give God the first part of your week in this way. And last, I want to ask you to order your month. And so you're going to give God the first 10% of your income as a tithe to the Lord. Tithe is a biblical word, means 1/10. I'm telling you, and as will countless other people in this church and all over the Christian world, is if you will determine that you're going to give God the first part of your income before you spend it on anything else, before you agree to take another loan or another credit card that's going to tap you even further, before you spend anything else, you're going to give the first part to God. Why? Because if you give him the first part, he'll bless the rest. It works that way with money as well as with your time. So today, what I'm doing is I'm just encouraging you right now. Just go ahead and check off those commitments. Go ahead and write your name in there at the bottom. Your end is near. Let's live like our days are numbered. You know, recently I read a story of a Finnish man. And he was an atheist and a farmer, and when he died, he put in his will that he wanted to give his farm to the devil. Now, I don't really understand why he wanted to give it to the devil if he didn't believe in God, but so be it. But he wrote this in his will, and so his will got to the courts, and the courts in Finland, they didn't know how to respond to this man's request that he wanted to give his farm to the devil. And so they decided, the court decided that the best way to carry out the farmer's deliberation was to let weeds and briars take over the farmland and to allow the house and the barn to remain unpainted and eventually rot, and let the soil erode and wash away. Listen to this. The court declared in its ruling, the best way to let the devil have possession of anything is to do nothing. I'm talking to you about this again, and I'm getting in your face again, because if you do nothing, you're inviting the enemy to take over, take back a lot of your life. And I'm saying to you, take an active step today. Take the challenge. Change something about your life on a level where it can really change other things. This story, it makes me wonder, what might be some of the things that I'm letting the devil take possession of in my life? Simply because I'm doing nothing to plan or prepare in advance for God to do a miracle in my life. What have I become apathetic about? This is a profound story.